Hey, all my Sagittarius friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to go over the year 2025 month by month and talk about some of the highlights that I think are going to be really influential for Sagittarius Rising for the year. This video is based on whole sign Western astrology. So if you don't know your rising sign, you're going to want to go to any one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time of birth, location, and obviously the date of birth to determine that information. The year is going to focus in on the Pisces energy and the Aries energy, as we're going to see some a stellium in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is your fourth house. That's the house of home and hearth. And Virgo is your 10th house of public status, of reputation, of career. So it's going to be a big focus. But let's start with January, because January starts with an opposition between Mars and Pluto. Mars is at the retrograding in 1 degree of Leo. Leo is your ninth house. And then we have Pluto transiting Aquarius in your third house. Pluto is the psychological planet. Pluto is that planet that knows your deepest, darkest fears, the dark thoughts that are not acceptable to society, the thoughts that some would call you criminal for. But at the same time, Pluto, once you've kind of dipped your toe into the darkness of the human experience, there becomes a wisdom and an understanding of the pain that you can usually see that creates that darkness. Pluto in your third house is opposing Mars in your ninth house, and Mars is about to move back into your eighth house. So these two planets, they're actually like strange bedfellows. They both rule Scorpio. So while they're malefic and they're a bit warring, they can be very transformational in their butterfly effect. Because when you, Sagittarius, sort of look at the idea, your ruling planet is Jupiter, and you can be very expansive and very inspiring and see the big picture of things. And Pluto will see the psychological BS and toxicity that holds you back underneath it. And if that isn't cleaned out, the Jupiterian ideas can't really manifest. So here's Mars transiting backwards through Leo. What do I want? How do I want to express myself? How do I want to enjoy my life? How do I take that the leadership energy of Leo and apply it in my everyday world? It can also have a lot to do with business, because the ninth house rules business, commerce, branding, marketing, publishing. And I think of that as content on the internet now. It also is a judicial house. It rules the Department of Justice. It rules religion. It rules the connection to the angelic realm, all with the overlay of Leo, the individual, the kings and the queens of the Zodiac. Now, Mars needs to be brave in its review of whether I'm standing in truth or holding on to some resentments that are holding me back. And that's where Pluto is relentless. And Pluto in Aquarius is like, I'm not settling for the past anymore. I want to move the story forward. It's also in a house that's your communications house. And the communications that we have to the outside world are mere reflections of the communications we have on the inside world. And Pluto is cleaning out what isn't working. So that is a super important beginning of January, and something you might want to pay attention to, because it's going to come back later in the year. The nodes are going to move into the Pisces Virgo axis. Pisces is your fourth house of home. That's where the north node will go, and the south node will be in the house of Virgo. The nodes change signs every 18 months. So they stay on an axis for about a year and a half. The last time they were on the Pisces North Node, Virgo South Node axis was 2006 to 2007, approximately June to December, that time frame. for those of you that were looking at astrology or remember what was going on at that time, there could be similar themes coming up. The Virgo energy is naturally very, it's a perfectionist. It wants to look for where there are flaws and to perfect them. It's the fine-tooth comb. In some ways, Virgo energy can get in its own way because it's expecting a level of excellence that the human doesn't actually really achieve, because the human achieves through its mistakes. And Virgo tends to want to make things mistakeless, if that's a word. So what you're going to see is a series of energies that support you sort of giving up wherever you're overly critical of your personal career or your public status or what you've wanted, if you've achieved enough, if you've done enough. There's also this overlay of health on this axis, meaning it's very mental. Okay. And that's where the Pluto-Mars opposition is so powerful and so helpful, because it's going to task you to remove any illusions you have anywhere you've been potentially overly empathetic or compassionate to a situation that's actually just a big mulberry bush that somebody keeps going around, and up until now you haven't seen it, but it's a victim-y kind of energy. Then the Virgo energy is also going to kind of want you to put practicality and some logical practices, daily practices into your 10th house activities. And while the South Node is there, it's also a point of erosion. So you may see if there have been certain energies that you have depended upon, but they are out, they've worn their welcome, or they're no longer really productive. They may move out, but you get to remember that whatever moves out, something moves in. You're naturally ruled by wealth, good luck, and expansion. And I might say that the first, the fifth, and the ninth houses are upachaya, not upachaya, dharma houses. And so they offer reward for your soul's intentional growth through lifetime after lifetime. And so you could take advantage of that here. Again, the Pisces energy in the fourth house could also indicate that with the North Node, that you're really wanting to have a home that's based on spiritual principles. That you want something that is more than just, hey, let's get up, run the kids to school, make money. Sometimes there used to be this song called Everybody's Working for the Weekend. I think the Pisces is like, I don't want to just work for the weekend. I want to have a dreamy life. I want to have, the perfect scenario in the sense of what is most important to me in the way of connection, in the way of, and when I say this, I kind of mean Sagittarius, you naturally rule the angelic realm. So your home environment being naturally spiritual makes sense to me. If it's been spiritual, that might have to stop so that the real spirits can come in. And again, that might be called forth through some 10th house. Something happens in your 10th house that you must let go of, that then allows something bigger to come in its place. I want to say too that there could be, again, depending on your natal chart, there could be in your 10th house, you could worry too much about other people's opinions and that trip you up. And it could be that in order to move your career and your public status forward, it's kind of listening to your inner voice over the gallery. We will see Uranus move direct in your 6th house of health. That's Taurus. The 6th house is also the natural house of Virgo. So, and these houses trine each other, Virgo and Taurus. So you may have some epiphanies about health. For some reason with Sagittarius, there's a good possibility for those of you that are trying to get pregnant, that it could be that you get pregnant this year. And I say that because your ruling planet Jupiter is going to move into exaltation in Cancer, the sign of home. So if you want to bring little people onto the planet, or if you want to bring little people into your home and nurture them, there's a very good possibility that Uranus will bring that energy in a way that you don't expect as it moves into your seventh house of partnerships. And that will happen later in the year. We see Venus, Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node all in Pisces. We're going to see a growing energy in this fourth house. Now, Venus is going to tip her toe into Aries in February, and then she's going to retrograde with Mercury back into Pisces. And there's going to be a lot of February, March, April activity around the home. And as you're prepared for that, you can pace yourself. Venus is going to bring up money potential. Saturn can bring up limitation, restriction, and authority. Neptune can bring erosion. The North Node, you're going to be wanting to shift that so much. The North Node is an energy we're reaching for. It's not something that we've settled into. It's something that it's like a dream on some level. And the more we focus on it, the more we can bring that dream into reality. In February, your ruling planet will move direct in Gemini in your seventh house of not only contractual partnerships like marriage and your business partners, but your sense of peace and harmony and cooperation, ebb, flow, things that are fair and just. And this is going to give you an opportunity to sort of look at the axis of the self, Sagittarius, first house, and Gemini, the house of partnership. And how are the two me's making a we? Or what is your belief about contractual partnerships? How they ebb and they flow. Mars will move direct in Cancer in your eighth house of transformation. Now, Mars has been going retrograde in Cancer since pretty much the beginning of January. We had that opposition with Pluto in the last, or I should say the 0 and 1 degree of Leo, and then Mars has been moving back there through Cancer. And now this is not easy because Mars naturally co-rules the eighth house. So there's a sense of entitlement with Mars there. And yet Cancer is very much focused on others and emotional things. And so it's asking Mars to transform itself into being more aware of other people's emotional body and how your energy lands. Sometimes I happen to know somebody who is quite just a yeller. That's just how he is. And if you try to stop him from yelling, he will say, "That's who I am." And he won't stop yelling. He's actually a Scorpio sun. And Mars in Cancer will not accept that answer. No, you will stop yelling. This is not. So this is going to potentially come up is that fighting, how people fight, how people express their resentments, their angers, you very much, because other people are involved in that eighth house. And they could potentially have control over you because that's a house where money and sex and has power and control over you. Now we've got Cancer, so there's an element of the home, hearth, mother, maternal energy. So just being mindful can help you express yourself bravely. Towards the end of February, we really have a wonderful stellium in Pisces. The Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, and the Moon will all have convened in that house. I think that this, for the most part, is mostly warm and fuzzy. It gives you an opportunity to really, you could see Mercury representing children. You could see yourself, again, conceiving a child potentially this year, or children being focused upon, as well as the mind, your neighborhoods. I feel like there could be, for my Sagittarius, is also starting to think about buying a home, where you want to raise your family, what is the dreamy ideal place for that, as well as the type of spiritual dynamics you're going to want within the home. In March, we will see our first eclipse season. We will have a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. Again, that's going to be in your 10th house. And then we will have a new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries. That is your 5th house. I can't help but think for some reason that there is a very good potential that, again, something is birthed. Aries is fiery. Mars has been Mars rules Aries, and you could be engaging other people in your vision, and your vision could have something to do with home and hearth, and be an interior designer, be a great chef, create sustainable something or others. It just feels exciting. I also want to say that eclipses have a 6-month influence. So oftentimes, like when we see this lunar eclipse in Virgo, we're going to go back to Pisces season 2024 to see what might have been happening at that time. What am I thinking? We're going to Virgo season because it'll actually be Pisces season when that takes place. So you're going to go back to September to see what was going on and what might be illuminated. And then that new moon in Aries is really planting the seeds in faith. And you're good at that, Sagittarius. Neptune will enter your 5th house of Aries. It has not been there since approximately 1862. It takes 164 years for Neptune to traverse the zodiac, and it's just finished it's about to just finish its journey through its own rulership and will not be back again for a long, long, long time. And so as Neptune enters Aries, it's a real shift. It's like, literally we're going from cold waters into hot, fiery energy. And sometimes you put those together and they create steam. And sometimes the water can put out the fire. We will also see Saturn joining Neptune there. So that's something to pay attention to, because if you have been feeling challenged in your 5th house energies, if you've been feeling like it's been so hard for you to manifest something personal, have fun, be creative, be adventurous, create a family, it could be because there's too much focus on that. And this Neptune in Aries is now asking you to not look at, Aries is like, looks at the earth and travels on the earth and journeys and pioneers on the earth. It competes with humans. So there could be too much earth looking, and Neptune's calling you up into your divine nature of your Jupiter ruler. So that's going to be, that's a long transit as well. It's about 14 years. So you're going to experience that. It's going to move back into Pisces for a minute and then move forward. Venus and Mercury will both retrograde in Pisces. Venus has tipped her toe into Aries, but she does most of her retrograde in Pisces. This is, again, Venus, the ultimate goddess. This is money. This is femininity. This is beauty. This is luxury in the home. Mercury is not just communications, but children and playfulness and flirtation and curiosity, So I think there'll be a real review about how am I playing with those energies in my own life. In April, we will see Mercury and Venus move direct. Mars will re-enter Leo and go back into an opposition with Pluto. And Mercury and Venus will be joining Saturn in the North Node in another stellium. And Saturn is again in those last degrees of Pisces because Saturn is about to join Neptune in Aries. And that starts in May. Saturn will enter Aries, and this will be the first time in about anywhere from 24 to 30 years, depending on retrogrades. Now, I think Saturn is welcome in Aries. I say that because Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn that Saturn rules. So it only seems fitting that Mars would put out, a red carpet for Saturn as Saturn enters his home, because Saturn's been so gracious to Mars. And this is where we really truly start to see a warrior come from a noble place. I kind of tease, I don't know if you all remember the old show Kung Fu with David Carradine, but he would go into these towns, a drifter, not a large man at all, and these bullies would come up to him and want to roll him for his money or whatever. And then the next, he'd turn around and kick their butts. And I kind of feel like that's what can happen here with Saturn in the house of Aries. Saturn is a leader. Saturn rules history. And here I think Saturn gets to have a sense of authority from him, a sense of authority through himself, meaning that he walks in knowing his vibration and being aware. I really think Saturn gets a higher vibration in Aries. So I think this is a good thing. Again, Aries is your fifth house. So that's going to be lit up for a while. It could feel a little repressive in the beginning, especially for people who are not aware, because it could stoke your fears. But fear is the place where exhilaration lives, where accomplishment lives, where the real tail wags in life come. Okay, now we see Pluto. Wait, where am I? Hold on. Okay. Saturn entered Aries. We're in May. Sorry, I've got myself so confused. Pluto will retrograde in May from 3 to 1. Well, not it'll start in May and it will go all the way till October from 3 to 1 degrees of Aquarius. And this is again where we see that Pluto and Mars are going to have an opposition, and that's going to be another fiery time in May. All right, sorry, I lost my place. Let's go to June. Saturn and Neptune are both in Aries, and now they're going to remain conjunct in Aries for the majority of the month, if not all of the month. Yes, all of the month of June. This is pretty significant because neither one of them get past 2 degrees of Aries. So they're hovering on the world axis of your fifth house of creation, of self. This is also a Dharma house. The first, the fifth, and the ninth houses are Dharma houses. They reward for past life good deeds. And you, as a Sagittarius, have them all in fire signs. So this is really magnificent for you. And I think it's a time when you, rather than feeling like some of us might feel old and like life is eroding us, but on the other hand, I think it's just the opposite. It's where the wisdom can kick in and the connection to spirit allows you to manifest things you hadn't done before. We have to remember that Saturn rewards over time. Saturn is the ultimate giver of good things that are sustainable, that last. Because Jupiter can give it to you and it can come really big and then something can blow it out. If Saturn helps with the mix, it's going to stay over time. Okay, now we also will have our last third square between Saturn and Jupiter. Your ruling planet is currently in Gemini. Gemini is your seventh house of partnerships. And this square to me is just another opportunity to sort of go into, if we think about Saturn in Aries, I've got to be brave on some level to be who and what I am. And yet Jupiter in Gemini can be a little bit, needs to come off the mountain a little bit and see how the real people live. Okay. And so I kind of feel like when I'm looking at this energy of your fifth house and your seventh house being the square, I got to say it this way, because it sounds like it shouldn't be a square, but because of the degree of Saturn being so early and the degree of Jupiter being so late, there is a square there. And that is that tense pull between my history and maybe me missing some things because Jupiter is looking too big. And I could be focused on my history, which is making me repeat that history. Law of attraction, that which you focus on, you create and you manifest. So I think that's interesting. Now Jupiter then in just a few days moves into its exaltation in Cancer in your eighth house and stays there for the next year. And I really believe there's a baby boom coming here. I believe a lot of people of childbearing years will bring little humans onto the planet because those little souls in human bodies will love to have that position of exaltation. The last time that Jupiter, your ruling planet, was in Cancer was 2013 to 2014. So I'm not sure that you'll revisit the same themes, but if you can remember back then, you may recall a few things. In July, we will see 3 planets move retrograde. First, we will see Neptune on July 4th move retrograde at 2 degrees of Aries until December 10th, 2025, and will retrograde to 29 degrees of Pisces. Saturn will retrograde on July 13th until November 28th from 1 degree Aries to 25 degrees Pisces. And Mercury will retrograde on July 18th until August 11th from 15 degrees of Leo to 4 degrees of Leo. Mercury will also make an opposition to Pluto during its transit forward and backward. And Venus is going to follow suit as well. This is pretty normal, but now Pluto is in Aquarius, so the energies will be very different. Uranus will enter Gemini, your seventh house. It'll just tip its toe in there before it moves backward into your sixth house. Once it does move in later in the year, it will stay there until 2032 or 2033, depending on retrogrades. So we'll see some unexpected and revolutionary things happening in your house of partnerships. And remember that seventh house is also professional partnerships, peace, harmony, diplomacy. In August, we will see Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde all month long in Aries. This is different than when it was in Pisces. And this is very much on the world axis. I think this is a very powerful transit that's happening in the background. It could be extremely erosive and extremely spiritually building, depending upon where you're putting your focus and what you're willing to let. I don't like this saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. What you're willing to let go of that no longer serves you. And that includes beliefs, people, situations, jobs, homes, whatever doesn't serve your expansion anymore. Venus and Jupiter will be in Cancer. Lovely August. This is so wonderful. Venus and Jupiter like each other. They're both warm and fuzzy, and it's all about enjoyment and pleasure and luxury and good food and good wine, and at home in Cancer, the transformation. They will be exact on August 11th. So you're going to get to feel this for a couple of weeks, in varying degrees. So put that on your calendar. Mars will enter Libra in its detriment. But here, Mars is honestly, Libra is your 11th house of networks of friends and your hopes and your dreams. It's the 11th house of the cosmic consciousness, naturally ruled by Aquarius. I think what this really means is that as Mars enters Libra, it's an opportunity to assess if the networks that you're working with in the groups you're socializing with, if they're aligned to your peace, your harmony, to where you want to be, to where you're moving in what you perceive as your future. We also will see Venus enter Leo and have her opposition to Pluto, and that happens at the end of August. Aquarius, again, is your third house of communications, and Leo is your ninth house of diversity, of expansion, of philosophy and ideologies and fun and your own creations. So keep that all in the back of your head. September, we will have our second eclipse season, and we will have settled into the nodes being in Pisces and Virgo. Our first eclipse will be a full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and then we will have a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo to follow. Again, this is on your fourth house and 10th house access. And this is I also want to say to Sagittarius, be mindful that you're taking good care of your immune system, not running yourself ragged, burning the candle at both ends, because you could find that you might hit a little bit of a wall as Saturn re-enters Pisces in September. September is also a busy month for moms and for people going back to school after summer. Uranus will retrograde from 1 degree Gemini to 27 degrees of Taurus. This is going back into your sixth house, which is, again, paying attention to how your mind, your daily activities, where are they fostering stress? How are you allowing yourself the ease of imperfection, the ease of that would be the Virgo 10th house, the ease of being fabulously flawed. That would be a good way to put it. In October, Jupiter is in Cancer, Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, and now they're making a trine to each other. This is where those tense conversations start to pay off, because Saturn brings up important history that Jupiter gets to pay attention to so that the expansion and the wealth and the good luck comes effortlessly versus inadvertently defaulting to an old history that could be erosive. Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces, conjunct Saturn. These two planets have been hanging out basically all year long within 4 or 5 degrees of each other. I think literally 4. At least in the retrograde part. This is so significant to like imagine this is the music that plays in your office or the CNN that's been on the TV all day long that is permeating your subconscious mind. But as as Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces, it's going to like station pretty much at that 29th degree. It's not moving any further back into Pisces. So there's a mastering of my divinity, a mastering of my awareness of the imperfections lead me closer to my divinity. That sometimes the things that don't work out are better than the things I thought I wanted that would work out. It's very kind of contrary and yet synergistic at the same time. Pluto will move direct in Aquarius at 1 degree. And, again, this is sort of a strong energy for independence, for rebellion against the things that don't allow me to move forward in my life, to look to the future, to look to my hopes and my dreams. November will see Mercury's last retrograde from 6 degrees in your first house of Sagittarius to your 12th house, Scorpio, 20 degrees. This is going to take place from November 9th until the 29th. The Mercury moving back into Scorpio in your 12th house could, during that period of time, really bring up soul's tendencies to defer, to give up your power and control in some way or another in an effort to be cooperative, and yet it could be asserting your own power, trusting your intuition. 12th house Scorpio can be extremely intuitive. It can also be very secretive and very have a bit of a criminal dynamic to it. Where people are planning stuff you don't know about. But again, this is, look in your own lives to see in your own charts, because if you have planets in the 12th house, this Mercury retrograde could bring information or have you reevaluating situations that have out of balance tendencies where you hold the short stick. Jupiter, your ruling planet, will go from 25 degrees of Cancer to 15 degrees of Cancer, starting November 11th, 2025, and going until March 11th, 2026. Jupiter, again, is always expansive to me wherever it goes. But when it's in exaltation, whether it's going direct or retrograde, it feels warm and fuzzy. And frankly, I think that Jupiter likes to retrograde in Cancer just to hang out in the house a little bit longer, although it retrogrades every year, but it has its most fun. And again, this is your 8th house. So you may find that anything you're building in your career starts to expand. Other people, you could find investors, you could find people, clients, vendors, people giving you breaks, all sorts of expansion in that direction. And I know it's in a retrograde, but I don't have a problem with that. It feels like I might be revisiting things that feel homey and capitalizing on them, planning on building them and expanding them once the retrograde's over. Saturn goes direct at the end of November at 25 degrees of Pisces. And that, again, is pretty significant because it's heading back towards Neptune. And in December, Jupiter is now retrograde in Cancer and Saturn is direct in Pisces, and they make a second trine to one another. Again, another fortuitous energy. I think this is giving you an opportunity to really have a supportive aspect in Jupiter's retrograde to set even more strong foundation to what you're building, because the 8th house is truly a powerhouse of money. It's where big money lives. And depending upon what planets you have there individually, you could really see things start to ping, 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 ping. And finally, for the end of the year, Neptune will go direct, excuse me, on December 10th at 29 degrees Pisces. and we'll hang out there for quite some time, finishing out the year in Pisces before it enters the world axis once again in 2026. So that's it, Sagittarius, for 2025. Be sure to check out the monthlies. I'm going to go into a lot more detail. I do a new moon and a full moon video every month. Check out your love and money tarot card readings every month. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Got lots of stuff coming. And have a lovely 2025. And I hope you're enjoyed your holiday season. My name is Teri Hunter, and I'll see you soon.